this week's episode of Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, the battle between angels and demons is reignited on the planet Mars, as the mobile armors have awakened, and they'll stop at nothing to destroy all of humanity. The march of the mobile armors has begun in this week's episode of IBO, which is honestly one of the most surprising plot points I've seen from just about any Gundam anime ever, and has completely solidified that I am enjoying the second season of Iron-Blooded Orphans even more than the first. What I think I love most about it is that the mobile armors themselves are not allied with any specific group. Their only goal is to kill all humans. And that's immediately what they start to do in this week's episode when they're confronted by Gallarhorn. And Eok has got to be one of the dumbest motherfuckers that I have ever seen. Not only is he partially responsible for awakening these mobile armors, even though he had no idea that it was going to go down that way, but throughout most of this episode, he makes some decisions which ultimately lead to the deaths of thousands of people. So, the story in this week's episode, of course, is that this big, massive mobile armor has erupted from the ground, and it is commanding this army of Pluma, which are those weird little horseshoe crab-looking mobile suits, which basically act as support for the mobile armor. They're incredibly fast, they can take out mobile suits with their giant drills, and they basically just overwhelm the enemy. As if that's not enough, this actual giant mobile armor has the ability to repair itself and even create an infinite number of these Pluma. Basically, it's a self-sustaining mobile suit with death on its mind. According to McGillis Farid in the past, the reason that these mobile armors existed was simply just to kill mankind. That brings up a lot of questions, like who would create weapons like this? Were they created for another purpose altogether? Were they reprogrammed to destroy all of humanity? Did they become self-aware and start acting like the frickin' Terminators? We don't know any of that yet. Really, we're just treated to all of their sheer power in this episode. And at the end of last week's episode, when we saw that thing awake, everybody noticed that it was using beam weaponry, which is the first time that we've actually seen that in the Iron-Blooded Orphans universe, which is a really big deal, because in the Gundam anime series, beam weaponry is like typically the most powerful type of weapons that you can use for a mobile suit. What is interesting is, as powerful and destructive as these beam weapons are, they actually can't destroy modern mobile suits, but they can still cause a lot of damage. In fact, I'd say one of the most shocking scenes of this episode is when Tekkadan and Gallarhorn are trying to corral the mobile armors going down this ridge, and they're going to try and basically ambush them. They end up going towards this agricultural plant, and Ride decides to defend all of the people there by blocking this big attack with his mobile suit. And he gets hit point blank with this big beam weapon, which I honestly thought he was just going to get annihilated there. It actually manages to go through him and deflect around him and causes all of this destruction behind him, which presumably kills just about every single person at the plant. Yet the mobile suit still stands. It's a really scary moment. Not to mention the actual mobile armor itself is just plain terrifying. It's basically like a giant bird, like a bird of prey. It also kind of reminds me, like I said in last week's review, of the Metal Gear Ray from the Metal Gear Solid series. Just put them next to each other and you can definitely see the similarities. Essentially though, it's basically just a giant bird of death. Like I said though, Eok was just a complete moron in this episode. His entire team gets completely annihilated. They beg for him to run away, and what does he do? He just hides behind some rocks and eventually decides to get his revenge against the mobile armor by hitting it with a superpowered blast, but it doesn't even do anything. If anything, it just pisses them off, and it completely ruins Tekkadan's plan, where they were going to try and draw all the mobile armors to a specific city that was going to be evacuated, and then they were going to ambush it. But no, Eok just completely ruined everything, and Ride almost died. He was about to be destroyed by this group of Pluma, but luckily Mikazuki showed up in the Gundam Barbados, which I'm waiting for that epic scene where it's going to throw down with the mobile armor. It's going to be incredibly intense. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Iron-Blooded Orphans? Just so many things are going on in my head right now. Not only was this episode action-packed, but it was also essentially another setup for the big battle with the mobile armors, not to mention the first major confrontation between McGillis Farid and Vidar. That's right, at the very end of the episode, right as McGillis and his companion are getting ready to head into the battle, which, by the way, he also has his own brand new mobile suit, which is like an upgraded version of the Grimgird, and it kind of looks like something the Shovel Knight would pilot if you know what I mean by that. It's got these, like, big Viking horns, but it looks pretty freaking awesome. But before they can even reach the mobile armors, Vidar comes down, and the Gundam Vidar confronts McGillis Farid, and my god, that moment, I squealed like a little freaking fangirl, just waiting for that first confrontation. Will McGillis actually know who this guy is? Will Vidar lose his cool when he goes to battle against McGillis Farid? Is Vidar even Gaelio, or are they really just messing with our heads, even though, come on, it has to be Gaelio. This episode also just happens to be a big tease with all the brand new mobile suits. Like, we get to see that the Gundam Flauros is ready to go into battle. It's been painted, it's all ready to go, it's got its weapons, but they're keeping it in the shadows. It's probably going to be one of those big reveal moments. Maybe if Gundam Barbatos starts to get pushed back a little bit, they're going to send the Flauros into the field, but I can't wait to see what that's all about. What I will say is, I mentioned it in my previous review, this does slightly remind me of the mobile armor that was seen at the very end of Gundam Age, which was also a giant bird-like self-aware mobile armor that was incredibly destructive and can take on tons of Gundams at once. And that's kind of what's going to be going on here as well, but the fact that they were just buried in this location leads me to believe there's probably going to be a lot more of these things as the series goes on, and I can't wait to see how they're going to emerge, if they're all on Mars, if there are some of them on Earth, hell, they might even be in the colonies as well, and this could simply be the beginning of a brand new uprising. But I'm really curious to learn a little bit more about the past, because McGillis gets into it a little bit this week about how Agni Kakairu, the founder of Gallarhorn, apparently was the one who was able to destroy these mobile armors, or at least incapacitate them. Maybe they were the ones who were responsible for burying them on Mars, but we still don't know the history of the mobile armors, like why they exist, what their motives are, why they only kill humans. You think they would something that would actually be useful for mankind, but they've transformed into these like non-stop killing machines. However, they do have a very key weakness. Even though they can detect Ahab waves, they actually don't have an Ahab reactor inside of them. They actually run on fuel. So they will have to refuel as time goes on. You can even see them ransacking a massive base in this episode just so that they can get some brand new power. But maybe they could just wait for them to run out. Maybe that won't be an option because there is the possibility that this mobile armor could maybe even leave the planet of Mars and move on to other colonies and maybe even Earth as it continues its path of destruction. We don't really know what it's fully capable of quite yet, and we haven't really seen anything that can match it. And it makes sense because the thing is just absolutely massive. It has a giant bladed tail and these 2 feet, which have these massive claws on them, which are so big they can basically hold a mobile suit right in its hand. It's creepy, it's disturbing, and it's freaking awesome. It also makes for one of the most surprising stories that I've seen from Iron-Blooded Orphans, and it might actually force all of these people to come together, put their petty differences aside, so that they can take out this brand new threat. I still feel that McGillis Farid has another motivation, though. I know he's being kind of sincere with a lot of people, but there's something not quite right about everything that's going on. You'd think he would be way more alarmed, and there are a few situations when he looks a little shocked, but he's just way too calm about a lot of the things that are going on. So we're just going to have to wait and see how that's going to play out. The next episode is just going to be awesome! And this episode was great, too. It's a beginning of what I think is probably my favorite arc from Iron-Blooded Orphans thus far, and you should definitely check it out. The hype is real. I'm giving this episode right here a 5 out of 5. As a Gundam fan, it's new, it's refreshing, and it's got a lot of hype with all the brand new mobile suits and Gundams which are about to appear. Just such an exciting time to be a Gundam fan. Check it out, guys. 5 out of 5 from me. If any of you did watch this week's episode, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. What are you hoping to see in the epic battle between the Gundams and the mobile armors? Why are they only killing humans? What is their motivation behind that? And what do you want to see from the rest of this season of Iron-Blooded Orphans? Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, that way you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. I will see you next time, and as always, stay dandy, baby!